Alright, how's it going everyone? I'm doing another live refactoring / live feedback on a subscriber's project. He is working on a diary application where you can kind of keep track of diary entries. It's all in Next.js, and I think the backend is using Express.js. So this is the first project I've done where I've had a chance to look at Express.js, so this will be kind of new. But he has a couple of things here. I don't know if you can see the right side of my page. Let me go ahead and just switch this over a little bit. If you see on the right, you can log in and you have like a profile and you have the ability to change some bio information. I don't think uploading the image actually does anything yet. You can reset your password, which I don't know what that actually does. I don't know if it really sends out emails. I have to look through the code. You can delete your account. You can log out. You can download your diary, which is pretty cool. It actually downloads like a PDF version of your diary for has all your entries in it. Let's click it and see what happens. It does take a while to process the PDF for some reason. I guess it's not too slow. All right, here we go. We got our little our diary entry. So it's an interesting application. It's funny because a long time ago I started working on like a little diary application as well, but obviously I gave up on that because I never finished anything. But if you look at the actual application here, the idea is like every day you log in, you get like a new entry that you can add in. So like here, September 1st, I can say like hello world. And then I can go down here and save. And on the right, he has like this little quick edit thing where you can easily scroll to whatever entry that you want. And then I think all the entries are ordered by date ascending, which is kind of strange. I would rather have the latest entry be at the top. There's a couple of things that off the bat, like I think the user experience for the application could be improved. For example, like let's say I forget to log on for 3 days, but I remember what I did a couple days ago and I wanted to add an entry for like a couple of days ago. I have no way of going back and like changing the date. This little component here, like I don't even find that useful because when you have like 100 entries, I don't know what entry number 5 is. I don't know what entry number 100 is. So like it's a cool idea, and like I think he was able to practice his programming chops by doing this. But ultimately, as a user, like if I were to use this diary app, like I wouldn't find this thing useful. I'd rather have like a calendar I can click and go back and get like snippets or snapshots of like what topics did I talk about during that day, what days did I maybe forget to log stuff, what days did I log stuff, and then also the ability to just easily like delete entries or like save an entry like individually. Like I wish this had like a debounce going, so as I typed, maybe after a second of no typing, it would just automatically save this entry. So there's a lot of things that I think I would have improved instead of having like a save button down here, because when you have like 1,000 entries, you have to go and actually like save it. And that button is so far at the bottom, you forget about it. And I also think there's some issues with like the scrolling, like when your entries get too big, like the scrolling sometimes just doesn't seem to work, or I don't know if I can replicate the bug, but I was seeing some strange behavior with that. But anyway, that's the idea. So we're going to look through the code base and I'm kind of give some feedback on like what I would have changed or what I could change to make it a little bit cleaner. Again, his backend and frontend are two separate APIs or two separate folders, which is fine. I personally would keep them all in the same repo if you could. And the reason he used Express for the backend is because he said he wasn't too familiar with the Next.js way of doing APIs, which is cool. I mean, sometimes we all have our different experience levels, and for the most part, we just do what, works best for us. I don't know why I have a bunch of Git changes though. Let me go to the backend. Did I change something? I might have changed some stuff. This is saying that I've changed. Oh, I added some things. Let me delete these. I did read through this code a little bit to try to understand like what's going on. And I'll be honest with you, this is going to be one of those code bases where like I'm going to look at a file and I'm actually going to get anxiety looking at the file because there's just so much stuff going on. And it's not that it's necessarily the coder's fault. It's more of like, I think the business requirements of this app to have like stuff automatically scroll. And as like you're scrolling through the app, you'll notice it automatically highlights this thing. There's a lot of like effects going on, right? A lot of like lower level DOM event listeners going on, which kind of makes it a little hard to read the React code. But I'm going to start at the backend because I think looking at his Express app will be pretty cool. He actually has all this built out with Express. He's using like Postgres. I think he's using Sequelize, which I used to use Sequelize a long time ago. I kind of dropped that library because it just doesn't work as good as something like Prisma that already does like your migrations and stuff. But there's nothing wrong with using Sequelize if that's what he wants to use. And I'm thankful that he gave me a Docker Compose that I can easily just spin up this Postgres database. looking into Docker and just understanding how Docker works is really important as a beginner, because when it comes to like DevOps and deploying your application, the more you know about DevOps, the more you know about Docker, like the more valuable you're going to be as a hire, in my opinion. And then if you're working with like microservices and you have all these different projects, you just can't work unless you have Docker, right? Docker is just like this tool that allows you to develop on projects that have different dependencies. And anyway, let's just focus on the code. Let's go ahead and look into the application. With Express, there's usually like an entry point, and there's nothing too out of the ordinary here. He has like some routes configured, and then he has some like authentication set up. And I think he connects to the database. One thing about here is I wouldn't actually start binding or listening to your application until you've connected to your database, right? So like you see here, he does database authenticate, which I'm guessing kind of like connects to the database. Let's look at this real quick. Yeah, I mean, it could take like a second or two to connect to the database, and you don't want to accept requests until like the database has been fully connected, I think. So what I probably would have done instead is like, make sure you don't actually do the app.listen until you are connected to the database. So I would have put that here probably. And then I would have put all these app.uses, like just put that before. And hopefully I don't make too many changes and like break everything, but that's just kind of like my preference. Let me make sure I'm not breaking stuff. I think I've already broken the code. I have an extra parenthesis here. Okay, there we go. That was brutal. All right, so let's actually make sure if I go back to the backend endpoint and I save this, I think he has Nodeman set up to like refresh this stuff. I hope. Yeah, he does. So does this still work? Can I still get the data from the backend and like have the database send us some information? Unfortunately, I think I changed my password, so like, let me do this. Okay, stop asking me to save my password. I would say like, there's not a quick, like I would put like a diary link here. Like if the main point of this application is to like go to your diary, I would have it like, that'd be your dashboard when you're logged in, instead of having to go and click on like Dear Diary. But let me just type in like hello world here. Go ahead and save this. And there we have it. So yeah, I mean, the main takeaway of that is like, don't actually allow your application to start listening for requests until you know you're connected to the database, or else you might start getting random errors if you have like a lot of traffic and you spin up a new server and you're doing like a bunch of load balancing and you have like a cluster of servers running. You don't want to like spin one up and then get a bunch of errors because you haven't connected to the database yet. But anyway, let's just go ahead and look at these routes. One thing I don't really like about what he's doing, and this isn't like anything he's doing wrong, this is just my preference. I hate the nested routes approach. I mean, like most backend APIs do this, where you have like /API/auth, and then that hooks into another router, and then that has more endpoints. The reason I don't like that, I mean, like Ruby on Rails does this, I think like Django does this, is you can't get a quick top level view of like what are all the routes that your application has, right? I have to actually dive into this endpoint or this like router to know like what the heck does this path accept, right? I'd rather have a single file that actually lists out all my API endpoints. So just to kind of exemplify that, if I were to take these things and just go ahead and put them like right here, personally, this is what I do on my applications when I'm using Express, because now at a quick glance, also these comments, he has these comments on his like above his APIs. And again, this is like an example of why he's doing this, because it's hard to tell exactly what is the full URL that hits these things. So instead of like having to comment this stuff, just put it at a single like top level routes directory. And I just want to do this, to be honest. And then you could just auto import like these endpoints directly from wherever you need to import them from, right? So I would do this. You can argue against this if you don't think this is a good approach, but I do think this makes it really easy. I open up one file, and from the get-go, I know exactly what endpoints my application accepts. Now, honestly, you could use something like Swagger or OpenAPI, which is a great way to like document your RESTful APIs. But basically it's like you have like a YAML file and you have to like type out all of the API endpoints and document everything, document the request, the response. It's a lot of extra work to get that going, but when you join like a real professional project, you're more than likely going to be using Swagger to document your APIs so that other people who are consuming your APIs can just look at the Swagger docs and know exactly what endpoints they can hit. Right? So that's just my preference. You don't have to do that, obviously, if you don't like that. So, but looking into like his endpoints, another thing that I kind of noticed is if you look at like, for example, this diary.ts file, it's almost like 250 lines of code. And I'm not a fan of putting multiple functions in the same file, right? If there's a function that can be put into a separate file in isolation that does not depend on another file, like another function, like for example, this download function, does that depend on the other function here, update diary? If not, then you could probably move it out to a different folder, right? So this is what I kind of do on my projects is inside of controllers, like I'd probably make a diary directory, and then I probably put like a download diary.ts file. And let's just go ahead and extract this whole thing out, right? Let's just put that here. And I'm going to go ahead and just export it. And most of this stuff is going to crash. So like, let's just go ahead and make sure we auto import whatever we might need. I don't know what we need, so I'm just going to copy everything. And then luckily, one thing I do like about his project, and this is pretty cool. Like if you look at his eslint file, he has a bunch of, is this the eslint file? The front end one. Which one? Maybe I'm thinking about a different project, but he had like a bunch of nice plugins set up that like, I think he had like SonarQube set up. No, that was probably a different project. Anyway, so the thing I'm trying to do is like, does downloading a diary depend on getting a diary? Are they related in any way? If not, then just like delete it. And then let's look through the download diary and try to understand like, what exactly does this thing need? And I'm kind of confused. Why is it complaining so much about the TypeScript? Looks like this one might have been used for this one right here. So let's copy this one in. User models. Do I need that? Probably. All right. So is that good? I like to read through the code and make sure that there's no, also, I don't know why this is capital D for download. Like everything else was named properly. This one was not named the same. So I'm going to call it download diary. And then I'm going to go back to this index file. And I'm going to go ahead and instead of download here, I'm going to put download diary. And then typically what I'll also call this like a controller, right? I like putting a suffix on my file names just because like it's super easy when you have the file open to know, are you looking at a controller? Or are you looking at something else? So I personally would go here and like auto import that. All right, so at a glance, like you can look at download diary and all of these things, these functions, it's failing because of this type here. So I forgot to pull this type over, but you see how easy it is to pull stuff apart? Like you know what is used in this file and what it's not because it'll turn gray. So like I would probably just do this, do that. And there's probably other stuff that was shared, but if you notice this diary file, we don't care about this HTML to PDF, right? This was something that was only for the download controller. And by doing what I'm doing, it really sets you up for like maybe deploying lambdas. Like you could have all this code be in isolation and only deploy the stuff that's needed for downloading a diary. And you can deploy that to a separate lambda if you wanted to, versus having like all this extra code attached to it, which you might not need. But let us see what else. So I think he has a bunch of helpers here. So like he's encrypting and decrypting contents of the diary. So in order to decrypt the content, you have to like run a helper function. So again, like I would probably make like a utils here, or you could make it like a, yeah, I'll just do a utils folder and let's just go ahead and pull some of this stuff out. Again, anytime you see an export, like if it can be in its own file, I would personally just do that. That's just my preference. So decrypt content.ts. Go ahead and paste that in there and figure out what we need to actually use to decrypt. Now, bear with me, like I'm refactoring, so there's going to be stuff that I'm going to be doing that you're like, you know, copying code over that we don't need. But now decrypt content, I think that was used in both files. So I could just go ahead and delete it from this one and then find where it's used, decrypt content, auto import that. And I should be good on that one. Go back to diary, find the decrypt content, which is this one. Delete the export here and go ahead and auto import that as well. And then just continue that process, right? I'll just continue it for this one, but I would probably do it for every single helper function because like these are helpers that are used in particular, like I guess everything that's used here. So this one would be encrypt content. So let's copy this name. Let's go over here, encrypt content, go ahead and go over. I'll grab this code again. Don't think I copied it. Paste it in, go up here, grab all this, paste that in, delete the stuff that's not used at all. And then go back to where we're using it, right? So we use it here. I'm going to delete that. Why is this decrypt content? All right, let's keep going. What is this complaining about? It's complaining about, who knows? Let's just go ahead and delete those interfaces and see if we can auto import this again. There we go. There's no more red in this file, so I think this file's hopefully good. And are there any other like utilities? Like this one wasn't used anywhere else. There we go. I think that's cleaner, personally. And then also, what else? Encrypting. So delete that, encrypt, find that, auto import it, and just continue to go down that approach. Defined, but it's never used. So I'll delete that. And make sure your imports are always at the top. I don't know if that was my auto import that messed it up, but put the imports at the top if you can. And let's just continue doing that, right? There's two other exports here that are like not related. So I'm gonna go ahead and make another diary controller. So like git diary controller.ts. Go ahead and paste all this stuff in, export git diary controller. Don't need to encrypt it, I guess. Go ahead and auto import that. Go ahead and go up a level here. Git diary controller. And the other one was update diary. All right, so I mean, we're just doing like some cleanup here. So update diary controller.ts. Go ahead and paste that in. What else does this thing need? I don't know. So let's just go ahead and copy all this over. Put it at the top of update diary. Go ahead and make sure I have this import going correctly. That probably needs to go up a level 2. Let's find encrypt. So yeah, now we have like separated, this diary.ts file can just go away, I believe. Like I don't think we need this anymore. I'm gonna delete it. And then for git diary controller, let's import that, update diary controller. Did I spell that wrong? Update diary controller. I forgot to put controller here. I also like using named exports for everything. I don't know why. I just think it's much easier to use than the other approach. So now it's easy to tell, like if I need to go to a specific controller, I can just go to download diary controller and I can see the code that's only related to downloading a diary. If I wanted to go to update diary controller, I can see the code that's only related to updating a diary. That's the approach I like to take. Again, I'm going to emphasize it. If you can split up the files, your functions into separate files, I would do that. I'm not a fan of putting a bunch of different functions that are completely unrelated into the same file. All right, so let's see if we can kind of go a little bit further. I think encrypt content was used here, so we need to auto import that. And let's just go ahead and look at these other files. Are we having errors anywhere else? It doesn't seem like it. Our app is passing. Actually, it was passing. I don't know if it's passing anymore. Diary router. Again, like, he has some tests over the diary router, so I don't know if I want to like get rid of those. But for now, I'll just go ahead and leave this file alone. I don't think it's going to cause any issues, but we do have an issue. Something is crashing. This one. I think I was just importing some bad files. All right, so let's see if this works. Okay, it didn't crash. And if I refresh the page, everything loads and I can go ahead and save that, refresh it. So all we did was just move files around. But again, like those are the things that I kind of do on my applications. I just think it's easier and more manageable when you have everything split up into separate files. And I kind of talked about this point multiple times, so I'm going to move on. So again, looking at his code, like, this code's a little much. I'm not gonna actually refactor it here because this will take a while. But he has a single update diary controller, and this thing takes in an array of entries. And then for every one, he like checks if it's a new entry, and if it's not, then he like will create a new entry. I don't know. It's this whole controller, it's doing too much. There's too much going on here, and he could have split this up into different API endpoints, right? So typically, if you're using RESTful APIs, this is not the approach you want to do. You want to do a /diary. Typically, you could do diary or diaries. I'm going to keep it diary to keep it consistent, but he'd probably want to do an ID here, right? You want to keep track of the actual individual IDs and allow users to update every entry by itself. Okay, and I'm assuming with his database, he has a table that holds entries. Okay, so these, honestly, like this endpoint, I would have called it entries because that's the actual like data model that you're updating with an entry ID here. I would have done this so that there's an endpoint for getting all the entries. There's an endpoint for updating one entry. There's an endpoint for downloading all your entries. Although like you could do a post here and then say like entries / downloads. That would be more like RESTful in a sense because you're creating like a download request. I guess you could call it like a download request, right? You're creating a download request. But let's just go back. And then also like I would add endpoints for creating a new one, right? So creating a new entry, I would probably make a create diary entry controller here. That's going to be a post request. Go read up on like your RESTful HTTP methods. There's get, put, post, patch, delete. Right now there's no way to delete an entry, so I would probably add one for delete here and call delete diary entry controller. And that's like a more RESTful approach. So like first of all, I would refactor your API to accept these type of things. And I would go through and go back to your UI and change it or refactor it so that you actually call these individual post endpoints. Because right now, this update diary controller, it's just doing way too much. There's too many responsibilities in this function. And it would make more sense if you just tried to keep your functions smaller and like just they do one thing. That's it, right? The fact that you have an if statement here saying that if one case you're going to update it, in the other case you're going to create, that's where you want to split, right? You want to split this out into a separate API endpoint, and this one can kind of remain here. And then even so, like the fact that you're accepting an array of entries, it's doing too much, right? It should just focus on updating one at a time. And again, going back to the UI, why is it that I need to save every single entry that I have here when I click the save button? Why can't I just not like update this one and then click like a save button here or just have it auto save? So if you were to do that with your API, I think it'll set you up for a much better design in your UI and like better UX in your UI. Because I think right now the UI is just doing too much. I mean, we can keep looking through the backend a little bit, but I think if you just follow that approach for all of your controllers and endpoints, I think you would be good. I mean, if you look at the add user middleware, I think it's cool to use middlewares. I think he's just doing some like JWT, like getting the token from the header. Although I haven't seen JWT used with an X token. Typically it's authentication is a token that you send over the backend, but I could be wrong there. I'm pretty sure it's authentication. And then you get that token and you're supposed to like verify it. And then he gets the user by that user ID. All this seems okay. And he uses that here. So basically all the endpoints, when you try to hit any of these endpoints, it's going to call that express middleware here, and it's going to look at your token. And if you don't have a token, it's going to throw an error probably. Which, where does he do that? He verifies it, and if it throws an error, I don't know what he's doing. Oh, if there's no token. Okay, yeah, so this is an authentication. This is just basically checking if you have a token. If you do, fetch the user ID from the token. Honestly, I would just put this here if you can, because why does this endpoint need anything to know with the token? Like, why does that endpoint need to know about the token? And again, like uploading an image, that should probably be a private endpoint because you don't want any user trying to upload an image. So I would probably move that down. Auth router, this is probably for like registration, login, updates, private endpoints. Okay, so yeah, I guess you do need it. I don't know. I would maybe like be more explicit, and instead of just doing this at a top level, like I would have done it explicitly here, like anywhere it needs it, like add it. It just makes it easier, I think. But I mean, what you're doing is fine. Let me just stop talking. But yeah, at this point I changed so much on the API, and I don't know if I saved this file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep going back to a working spot. Let me make sure this works. Ugh, what happened? Okay. I don't remember what the password was, so I'm just going to make one up. The account with the, okay, username was already found. Here we go. All right, we're back in business. So those are some things I would do. Leave a comment below if you have any suggestions about like what I said, or if you have any doubts about what I said. Again, I just have my own opinions on things. My opinions aren't the best opinions. They're just opinions, right? There's 1,001 ways you can kind of create an application, and there's no right or wrong way. There's just, you know, as long as it's manageable and it's manageable for you and your team, then you're good. So I think that's all I want to show about the backend. Let's move on to the front end. I mean, he has some like SQLized models here at the backend, but there's nothing too extravagant here. Like, I don't know much about SQLized, so I can't really comment too much about it. But I think it just kind of like creates your models and validates them before you save them. So I guess that's cool. All right, let's move on to the front end. So the front end is what's kind of giving me anxiety. I really don't want to have to start refactoring the front end, but let's just look at it because I think it's worth looking at. So the main thing that we should probably look at is this page. This is where like a majority of the content is happening, and as you scale down, there's actually like a mobile view going on, and he has like logic to like automatically hide that thing. So as you can tell, like there's actually going to be quite a bit of logic on this application when you go to this page. So if I go to the pages and I go to journal and I go to index, this is where the fun begins. Okay. Looking at this component, I'm going to try to refactor this component first, and then if I have time, I'll go on to the next one. But I'll tell you what, this journal component, it's intense. It's intense. So we're going to have to either, I don't know, I might need a beer or two to be able to get through that one. But let's look over here. Let's see if we can kind of refactor this. So this is the journal page, which has this like left sidebar. Actually, it doesn't even have the left sidebar. This is his next page, and he's fetching the data on the client side and then passing that down into journal component. So right off the bat, I mean, like, he probably could have did some type of like server-side props if you wanted to, so that the backend can just load the data and like it'll just show in the front end. But there's times where it's fine to use client-side rendering, and I don't have any preference in this example. But let's look at if we can kind of refactor the data fetching, right? Anywhere you have data that's being fetched, it's usually not a good idea to have the actual like endpoints and the actual like the utility that's fetching the data hard-coding to your components, right? Because you rather it be abstracted away. So let's see if we can make like a new thing. I made a proxies folder here, but I'm gonna go ahead and make a file called like git diary.ts. And we're gonna go ahead and say export const git diary. like so. And we're going to try to just pull the bare bones stuff out of here and see what we can do with it. So I'm going to go ahead and just take this stuff. I'm going to go ahead and return it like so. Make sure I auto import that API. Make sure I would probably pull out iResult and put it directly here, honestly, and then export it. You want your like TypeScript to type the things that are returned at the lowest level from your data possible, right? So if this thing is where you can type the stuff, then you don't need to like start typing everywhere else because it's going to already be typed as it comes back from the promise. And then also like iResult, this is a very bad name because we're fetching a diary, right? So this should probably be called like type of diary. And in fact, if you actually look at the SQLized model, so if I go to like the backend and go to like diary entry, this has a user ID on it, right? So this entity, this type, I mean, should be a number, right? It should have user ID. So I would do that and then make sure like your backend, or you make sure your code's actually typed correctly because that's actually what's coming over the wire. And if I go to the network request here and like clicked on diary, you'll see that the results that come back, it has a user ID in it. So you want to make sure your types match that. This is a great reason why you want to use like TRPC because your types are automatically like pulled in from your backend. But I mean, he's not using TRPC, so it's fine to use REST. Just make sure you keep your types kind of aligned with like what's coming back from the backend, or else like your UI doesn't actually have the full knowledge of what's coming back. Anyway, so yeah, we're trying to abstract away like a helper function so it knows how to fetch this diary data. And what you could do here is I'm just going to return res.data. If you want to simplify that a little bit, you could just go ahead and do this and then return data here. Like so, like you don't want this file to know anything about hooks. Like this shouldn't know about React. All this should know about is how do I fetch data? That's my single responsibility is I need to fetch some data and return it to somebody. So let's actually redo this because I think I have like a typo somewhere. I'm like missing a comma. Okay, there we go. The way Axios works, I believe he's using Axios. Yeah, is it's going to return a response that has a .data on it. So if everything works fine, just return that directly to your front end code because you don't want your front end knowing about like Axios. You don't want your front end knowing about how to do like response.data. And if there's an error, he's calling this function handle Axios error. I'm not really sure what this thing does. He's like taking the error message and like returning it or something. But personally, I would probably just throw that error. Like I would throw new error and then pass it like error.message. I think he called it like new, I'm sorry, he called it like new error message. That's what I would do. I don't know what this error return is. Like that seems like a smell to me. Like I don't know why this thing would be returning a string that says return. That seems like a smell. The session ended, please reconnect. Return. I mean, I would probably call it like session ended at the very least. So that I can say like if session ended, then either way, it's an error. Like, I don't know. I'd probably just do this. So now we have like this function that we can call from our code in the front end. So if I were to go ahead and just call this, we basically export const get diary. Let me auto import that. And now what we're going to get back here is this is going to be diary data. So instead of our front end code knowing about like res.data, it knows about diary data, which is a little bit cleaner. And then if an error comes through, it doesn't need to know about Axios here, right? Your React component should not know about Axios. So instead, I'm just going to go ahead and put error.error here. And I'll clean that up a little bit so I can do that. But it's expected to be a string, so I think I should do this. There we go. So TypeScript came in clutch there. Pretty cool. So some other things that people tend to do is they'll use something called like custom hooks to abstract away this use effect. One thing that you'll start noticing is the more use effects you have in a component, the more unmanageable your React component becomes. It's just super confusing to understand what's going on, in my opinion. So what a lot of people do is they try to abstract away as much like fetch logic and just state logic away into a custom hook. You can put that in the same file if you want to, or you can make like a hooks folder like we have here, and I'll just put one called like use Git diary. Something like that. I don't know. You can name it whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. Use Git diary. I do believe React requires you to have the use prefix on your hooks. Could be wrong about that. I need to go back and read the docs. But the idea is you basically take that code, that like effect code, your code that's fetching from the backend, your code that is setting state. So in our case, like we could basically call use Git diary here, and we don't need to call this. There's also like a window.scroll. I don't want to lose that, so we'll do that in just a second. And the idea is like the state can also be pulled into that use hook. And this would be called more properly like diary and set diary. And this, instead of iData, like you could probably call it iDiary or tDiary of an array. I don't know why he's doing this status idle result of null error stuff. I really don't understand this. I would rather just make this equal an empty array, and then I would say like error and set error. Just like that. And that could be a string. Like so. And while I'm doing these refactorings, like feel free to leave a comment and be like, oh, I would not have done what you've done, Cody. Like I would change that. It's all like a personal preference. At some point you find out a better way to do stuff. But I would basically just set the error here. I don't know why he uses the status failed, status success. Like we know if there's an error, then it failed. If there's not, then it was success, right? If data is set because it's gonna, you could probably make this undefined to begin with or null. And I could type this to be like undefined or null. So we know like, okay, if diary is set, then we know the data came back. So I'm gonna go ahead and say set diary, and I'm gonna pass it diary data here. And hopefully I'm not breaking his code too much. I'm gonna return the error in the diary. So what this hook is doing basically, we've abstracted it even more. So like this code doesn't care about like when this data is fetched. Or like it doesn't have to care about the use effect. It just needs to use this hook, and it knows it's going to get back some diary data, right? At some point, that diary data should come back. All right, in this interface we created, I'll delete that. I will make another thing here. Diary error. I think you could also do like an is loading if you wanted to, but at that point, like you should just bring in React Query because it's basically doing exactly what we're just doing right here. I'm just kind of showing you for an example of like how you can refactor your code to make it a little bit cleaner. But this as well, like this could be a custom hook if you wanted to. So I could make a new hook called like use scroll to top .ts export const use scroll to top. And just go ahead and say like, use effect. Go ahead and call that. All right, so like what is the benefit of that? Well, again, like we don't have to worry about the effects. I'm still trying to convince myself that this is actually like achieving much, like pulling this out. I mean, it's always good to have smaller functions that just kind of encapsulate all your logic into like a smaller function. So like, was it worth abstracting this out? I don't really know, but let's just do it anyway. So when this component loads, we're going to scroll the user to the top, and then we're also going to fetch the diary data, right? So you can read this in like a declarative book way where you know exactly what's going on, versus if you had all this other like imperative code, it gets really, really dirty really fast, and you can't just like read your code. It just becomes like anxiety invoking, in my opinion. But we have this diary data now, and what we could potentially do is we're going to go ahead and just look at this code a little bit more. So I don't know why he has this journal component twice. I think what he should have done instead is like probably just have it once, and this could take in the diary data like so. And that's about it. And he's also like mapping over the data and like converting stuff to a date. I probably would have left that to be the responsibility of this component to do it at once with that data. Or like, I don't know, I'm gonna delete all that. I just think it's a code smell to have that weird like if statement. And what you could also do is like you could put a loader here if you want to, or a suspense to say like, if this thing is not set yet, then do a loader. If there's an error, then redirect to an error page, something like that. But I mean, we kind of cleaned up this component a little bit, but for the most part, I don't really know. You can be the judge if we cleaned anything up. So I'll rename this one the diary. And the diary would be the key, what do we call it? Diary data, like that. So let's just go ahead and import that from the proxies. And then everywhere we had data before, like we just need to refactor that a little bit. Like here, I think he's doing it here and here and here. Now call unsafe call of any typed value. Yeah, let's just look at the application, and it's actually crashing right now because diary can be null. So like we should probably do like if diary, then we could show it. Something like that. I think that might potentially fix the issue. It's crashing here as well because the way he has his code set up, he requires this diary to have like at least one entry. So what we could potentially do is I wonder if we could actually like go back to the diff here and figure out like what did this thing need to be when he started using it. Like this is the initial state that he needs it to be. And we could just go to the journal component and like check if this thing is like not defined. Diary, where's this used? Here's the initial state. So if diary is not defined, then we could probably have it return something else. So I'll say if not, or if diary.length is 0, then we're just going to go ahead and set it equal to this. Otherwise map over it. Does this work? Did I break everything? Probably did. Let me undo that. So let's actually find where it's crashing, because I'm just going to go here and say like if diary, yeah, I'm just going to say if diary.length is less than or equal to 0, then I'm just going to say return false or something. I don't know. I don't really know his code too well, but I think that'll at least prevent it from crashing. No? Less than or equal to 1, maybe? Man. If it's less than or equal to 1, then just return false. Maybe I should return true. At this point, I'm just kind of like hacking at this code. I should probably take a pause and actually try to understand what's going on. And I could probably go back and use his code that he had before, because I think I just broke everything. That's the joy of refactoring, you know? Sometimes you try to do something better and you just break it. So like, if diary is defined, and then we want to basically say like inside of this, if diary.length is greater than 0, then he's trying to like do all this stuff. Okay. I don't like what I'm doing here, but I'm going to do it anyway just so I can kind of get this app working. I'm going to go ahead and just loop over the diary data if it's defined like this. I think this could potentially be undefined. Yep. And this is a thing that for some reason we have to pass in. I think I'm trying to change the interface too much. Like he has an interface for a particular reason. And I'm going to do the same thing here. So I'm going to pull this out. Then I'm going to say like const default diary data is equal to this. And then I'm basically going to say like const diary data is equal to diary length is greater than 0. Then I'm going to go ahead and use the default. Actually, I'm going to use this one. Otherwise, I'm going to use the default. This is messy. Let's just put that in there and hope that we made this a little bit better. And I think the TypeScript is going to complain. Object is possibly undefined. I'm checking to make sure it's defined here with a question mark. So I'm not sure why it's saying it's possibly undefined. I don't know about that one. And this one, I renamed it to be T. I think this one, he just needs it to be T diary is fine. Let's just do this. Okay. It's working now, I think, but over here. Oh, man. Yeah, so I mean, like, I don't know, that if statement before, like, it was doing too much. Like, I feel like there's a better way to, like, not have this component have to know about. Like, this logic should have probably lived in this component. If you pass it an empty array, then it needs to kind of like push in an additional thing somewhere. But I think I just made this code. I moved the complexity from here and I moved it up here, which is, maybe that's better, maybe it's not. But let's look at this journal component. I don't know if I'm even going to start working on this, but let's just look through it real quick. And I wanted to point out, like, this is what happens sometimes in React when you just start adding and adding and adding to it. And sometimes there's like nothing you can do because a lot of this code, like all the effects, like I think these use effects here with the mouse up, this is only for mobile. So we have these two effects here that if we can find a way to separate our component based on like mobile versus non-mobile, I think it would make more sense. And then these things would not live here. But there's just so much going on in this component. And I feel like if you see your component reaching this point, you need to stop and pause and like rethink about what you're doing. Cause like for me, someone who's been doing React for a while, I read through this and I'm confused. I don't know what I'm looking at. It's just turns into like an alien language at some point, and I literally have no idea what any of this stuff is doing. And I have to like sit here and really grok what I'm reading. Like this again, we could do the same approach with the custom proxy and the use effect hook, the custom hook to kind of abstract that away. But that wouldn't even fix most of our issues. Like this component is doing so much, and it's so, I don't want to say it's confusing. It just takes more mental investment to understand what's going on. So at the very least, like we could at least start at the template and see if there's things that we can kind of do to like split this up. And it turns out there's like a sidebar container here, and maybe we could start with that. And that's probably as far as I'm going to take this thing. So let's just try to bring out at least the sidebar and see if that helps clean up any of this code. Sidebar component. All right, so let's make a sidebar component. TypeScript React, like so. I'm gonna paste that code in and just import that, import that, import that. Is a new day. Let's go ahead and find where that function is. It looks like it's used here. I don't know if that could be like an export as well. Probably. I could probably export this. Is new day today, small indicative page. So he's using this everywhere. I mean, at the very least, like we've moved it out to a different file. So like we can just go ahead and import that directly from this other file if that helps anything out. And then the sidebar component, this could just be called the sidebar component now, like so. And I'll delete this. I think I auto imported that, but this is going to need some props, right? For this to work, like we're going to have to pass it something. I don't know what we need to pass it yet, but this is another thing. If you can make functions that are like more pure, like why does this thing have access to a global variable, right? If you could pass in diary instead, and that could be just some type of any array, or I don't know what this would need to be actually. I guess it would have to be like this, something. I don't know if this lint error is complaining about, but what does this thing need? It needs a show. It needs a show and it needs a sidebar ref. So one thing that you'll notice is that there's like this set show thing going on. And like this is not named well, right? Like what is it showing? What is it not showing? This is showing the sidebar. So I think we can maybe pull that whole state into this component here. And then also with the sidebar ref, like let's see if we can pull that in. And now we have like red everywhere page number. Is that used somewhere? Okay, so again, he has like a he has a page number constant and he's incrementing it. That's kind of a red flag to me. I'm not sure what's going on there. I don't know how that would even work. It should crash because it's a constant, but he has like these effects and he has like on click outside. I think these are all related to the sidebar itself. So I can go ahead and pull that stuff out and just put it here. Okay, I can't take this error anymore. I'm going to go ahead and just delete it for the entire file so we're not seeing red everywhere, because it's literally impossible to see what the heck's going on. Go ahead and use the callback, bring in use state, bring in use ref. Okay, there's a little less errors. Control sidebar, window add event listener. I feel like this stuff is also related to the sidebar. So let's just go ahead and pull that out here as well. Last scroll Y, where does that come from? I have no idea where that comes from. I guess we could just pull it up here. Man. Oh, look, we have a scroll to top. So I can say like use scroll to top. There we go. We found a useful way to basically use that helper function here. Awesome. All right, so we've actually reduced this file quite a bit by change prop. This probably needs to be pulled out as well. On change prop, or on change page is what it's called. That page. So this looks like it should probably come in from props. So I'm gonna go ahead and just, this could be a function that does, I don't know, nothing. And this could be like a page number, I guess. That current page. This thing probably needs to be an export so I can use it here. Okay, why is this not working? Export interface, journal component. Auto import's not working probably because there's like thousands of errors everywhere. But let's delete some of the stuff that we're not using. Don't use that. We don't use 3 of those. Okay, so we've actually made some good progress. Like we're not using a lot of the stuff that was used before. Why is this not, oh, auto import? Okay, I don't know why this is not getting imported. So I'm just gonna go ahead and import it. Like import this from index. There we go. Don't know why the auto import's not working. I probably still have a bug. If you can group your stuff together, like, okay, let's put all the interfaces together, right? Put them all together. This thing could probably be pulled out to another file. And I think I've seen that somewhere else as well. Like, was this used somewhere else? Download diary. He has the same exact code in the back end that he has in the front end. So if you're using TypeScript on both the front end and the back end, like this is a reason why you probably want to have it all in the same repo if you're trying to share some type of logic. But if this is like back end business logic, then you should not have it in the front end probably. And your back end should return something for this. Format strings and substring with n-words. Got no idea what this does. You see how complicated this logic is? Like even a little description here, because I don't know what this is even doing from a glance. And I shouldn't have to like read through all this double for loop logic. I would put a description. Like this is the one instance where I'd say like this needs a comment and you need to say like what this does. Takes in a word like Bob and replaces XYZ or something. You know, like a description that actually explains what it is. Because right now it's like no one's going to be able to read this code and know what it means like from a glance. They're going to take 5 minutes to even understand what the heck this is doing. All right, so what else? All these interfaces that you have like nested inside your component, I think it just adds noise. So I would just take all those interfaces directly out. And again, group them together or even move them out of the file if you can. Like I don't see there's any benefit to having them inside the function React functional component here. Sidebar component, it's complaining because we're probably missing something. That current page, where is that actually defined? It's here in state, set current page, but it's complaining. Oh, it's not complaining anymore. Yeah, so what else does this thing need? Cannot find data by date. Don't know what that is, but we're just gonna go ahead and just accept it to be an any and then go and find it. It's actually this, use state is that. So we want to make sure that this is exported so that we can use it in the other file. Let's just go ahead and import it. There we go. A little bit cleaner. We got like 4 more bugs. Cannot assign to page number because it is a constant. I don't know how this even worked before, but what he's trying to do is he like loops over these things and then he increments the page number. I don't think that's what we want. Like we want page number to be this. We could probably just do this plus 1, I think. Because I think he set page number to 1 before. So maybe that'll work. I don't know. It's a number plus 1 unsafe assignment of an any value. I don't know why this is saying this is an any value. Operations of plus operation with any. This isn't an any, this is a number, right? Oh, it's not. Okay, hold on. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and just undo a lot of that stuff because I don't know, this is definitely a red flag to me. Like, I could set page number to 1 here and that'll work, but it's just, that's hacky. I shouldn't have to do that. In current page, what's current page coming from? Guess that should be passed in as well. Current page is a number. And let's go ahead to the red errors and let's just go ahead and like do this. Data by date. Is today a new day? Oh yeah, this thing I changed to take in a diary. So like I have to pass in data by date, I think. Or diary. I don't know. Import and export may only appear at the top level. What does that one mean? Oh. How did I end up doing that? How did I get exports in front of those? That weird. Okay, this dumb thing is still complaining. Pages, journal, index. Like this thing is still complaining about the default diary. Let me just do this. If diary, if it's defined in the length is greater than that, then we'll do this. Okay. At this point, I mean, I'm like getting pretty burned out on this refactor because like you can imagine how much stuff is going on here. Let's see if I can go to the sidebar component and just find that real quick. And I'm just gonna go ahead and like, oh, this one's complaining about diary as well. So like I have to pass it to diary. Diary, and I think he called it like journal component. I'm trying to salvage this front end, but okay, at this point, like, screw it. I'm just gonna go ahead and say like, if diary length -1. if the diary.length is greater than 1, I think I need to do this. I'm just trying to get it so it doesn't crash. Right, it's trying to like subtract by 1. And this thing just keeps crashing for everything. All right, there we go. So it actually works. We actually got this thing working. I guarantee there's probably some bugs from that refactoring. But for the most part, I mean, like, it seems like it's working okay. But that was exhausting. I don't know. That took a lot of brain power. And again, like there's still so much more we can do with this component to like clean it up. Like there's still interfaces defined down there. That we don't need to have it defined everywhere. I feel like some of these interfaces are like duplicative. Oh, I don't even pass diary here. Still working, nice. I want to make sure the mobile stuff still works. Like that's still working. You know what I mean? So the main takeaway of that is like, if you try to split your page up into the components that they look like this looks like a component to me, and this looks like a component to me. So split them out into separate components to begin with, and then let them evolve that way, because most of these effects were only related to the sidebar component. And I could even clean this up more. Like I think there's some bad stuff going on with these effects. And like this one, like why is mouse up, add event listener? Like I feel like this could just be the cleanup function of this, and you can delete it, right? Like that's the use effect is going to be able to return a cleanup function when the component unmounts or when this variable changes, I believe. So that's probably what I would do. And then having a callback here, like defined outside, I think it might be fine to just like make the function live directly inside of this use effect, because no one else is using this function anywhere else, right? So like, what's the point of having that be its own callback? Like I could have just do this. Could do that, and then I don't have to have a callback here. I don't have to have this like dependency array, and I believe this should work the exact same way as before. Maybe. Cross my fingers. So it's like those little cleanups you just have to kind of keep on the eye, keep looking out for. Like you did it properly here with the cleanup. If window is not equal to undefined, I'm going to say if a window is undefined, and then I'm going to return, right? So if you could like do that. Although I think this needs to return like nothing. Actually, I don't know if you need to return anything here. I think it might still work if you don't return anything. Right, so I think this is called like a guard clause or something. I don't know, break early. Just easier to read. Same thing up here. Like if window is not defined, then just like leave early. Easier to like understand this. This thing could probably be a ternary. Just like literally do this. Or you could just say set show less than or equal to scroll, I believe, and that would be the same thing. Okay, so that cleaned that up a little bit. I believe that's the same logic. Not too sure. Looks like it's still working the same way, so I think we're good. But yeah, I mean, like, just sometimes you need to slow down and just read your code and be like, can I clean this up? Can I make this better? Am I overcomplicating things? And most of the times the answer is yes, you probably are overcomplicating things, and yes, there probably is a way to clean some stuff up. But yeah, I wish I could fix this bug with this weird issue with the diary thing. I don't know why that's crashing. Actually, I might have fixed it. Let me delete this. Yeah, I think I actually fixed it because I wasn't passing diary before. So cool. Yeah, so there's like a lot more we could probably do here. But I'll be honest with you, I can't I can't do it anymore. I mean, like there's just so much going on in this component, and I just need to keep on finding ways to like split it up. Like there's a function called onChange, and if you could name onChange better, like what is it changing? what does on change mean? Like, is it mean like handle diary entry changed? Is that what you meant by on change? If so, like, you can name stuff to be more descriptive about like what exactly is happening. You know what I mean? So like when someone else comes to your code and they see something that says data, or they see something that says on change, they're not super confused. And instead it says handle diary entry change. It's like, oh, okay, that probably means when someone types into this text area, right? Because they're changing the diary entry. That's some suggestions I would give you. I do think there's a smell here where you're passing in diary and then you're putting that into a new state variable. I think that's a smell. Personally, I don't think that's what you should be doing, but I don't have the capacity right now to even like walk you through what you could do instead. You have a return statement here that, let's see, if new page return. Anyway, yeah, I mean, if you like watching this video, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe, like, whatever. Join my Discord if you want to talk to me directly or ask me questions. We have a community of other people learning how to code, and there's a lot of people willing to help you out if you're stuck. So feel free to go there, ask questions, send links to your repo. Maybe someone can help you out. And again, if you want me to review some code in a video like this, feel free to send me a link to your repo. I have it on my Discord channel. There's like a code review channel that you can paste the link. I may or may not get to it. I have like 10 already that lined up, and I'm just kind of picking them at random as I feel like I have the energy to do. Honestly, making these type of videos are probably the most mentally draining because I have to like read through other people's code, understand what they're doing, and find ways to improve it. But overall, I mean, I think this app, sometimes I get negative and like I'll start talking bad about code when I'm refactoring, but it's more of just like I'm so overwhelmed, and sometimes code is like anxiety invoking, right? Looking at all this code can be very anxiety invoking. So that might kind of show off in a video, and I apologize if I say anything that offends the people who wrote this code that I'm reviewing. But again, I'm just letting you know that this application is actually pretty cool. I think you could take this to the next steps. You can really build upon this and give it some good potential. My only advice would be like really work on the UX and make this more user-friendly. And you might find that you don't even need this side component because it doesn't add value to your users. And if you don't need this side component, I guarantee you most of your complexity of this entire application will be cut in half, right? Because then you don't have to worry about scrolling and doing all this other stuff. If you just had like pagination and you can swap or swipe like left or swipe right to go to your entries, or if you had a counter component where I can easily just go straight to the entry that I want, your code would be much easier to understand. And sometimes complex business requirements will drive the complexity of our code, right? So keep that in mind. But yeah, I had fun doing this one. I appreciate you sending me your code, and I hope you guys learned something from watching this. Have a good day and happy coding.